Is Astra Malorum better than Ashes of the Damned? Now that the brand new Black Ops 7 Zombies map has been out for quite a few days, I thought this would be a great time to compare it to the launch map. Both of these maps have been getting a lot of praise in the community over the past few weeks, but there definitely is a lot of divisiveness on which map people prefer. So in this video, we're going to go over everything I prefer about Ashes of the Damned, and then we're going to switch over to Astra Malorum and talk about everything I prefer about that map. And in the end, we'll decide which map is better. Starting off with what I prefer about Ashes of the Damned, I think one of the most obvious things is that the map is much bigger, which of course, bigger isn't always better. Just because a map is bigger doesn't necessarily mean it's utilizing that space better than another map. And don't get me wrong, I definitely had a lot of criticism for how Ashes of the Damned used some of its spaces, especially the fog areas. But ultimately, there is just more to explore on Ashes of the Damned than what you have in Astra Malorum. It took me a decent amount of time to get around the whole map for the first time and learn the layout, whereas for Astra Malorum, it took basically one game. I also do prefer the main quest of Ashes of the Damned. I don't prefer every aspect of the main quest, which we'll talk about some of the other aspects later, but in general, I do prefer how much longer the quest is on Ashes, and also just the steps themselves are a little bit more enjoyable. I feel like they had a good mix of puzzles and action steps. I didn't like the step where you had to find the keys around the map, though. I'm not really a big fan of that step, but pretty much everything else I enjoyed quite a bit. Astra Malorum's quest is very short, to be honest. Even though I do like some of the puzzles you have to solve on it, there just isn't a lot to it. It feels very simple. There's like one action step in the entire quest until, of course, you get to the boss fight. And I wouldn't say it's narratively that interesting either until the boss fight. But like everything before that, just, I don't know, there's not much to it. It's not that interesting to me. It was fun to hunt for, but ultimately, I don't think I'm going to look back at this quest as one of the best we've seen. I also much prefer the Necrofluid Gauntlet on Ashes over the LGM on Astra Malorum. Not just in terms of its power, but also just in terms of how much more fun it is to use. I'm a big fan of wonder weapons that have multiple attacks, which the Necrofluid Gauntlet does have multiple different attacks, whereas the LGM is literally just one attack. You just spam the trigger and you shoot out these UFOs. Visually, it looks really, really cool. I love the design of the LGM, but it's just not that fun in gameplay. You're just kind of spamming the same button. There's really no skill to that. There's really no thinking behind using the one weapon. Whereas with the Necrofluid Gauntlet, there's a lot more skill behind it. There's a lot more depth to it in terms of when you use certain shots, when you use certain attacks, how you use it against the zombies. It's way more interesting. I love the overheal mechanic on the Gauntlet as well. And even the quest for getting the Gauntlet, getting the wonder weapon, is much better than getting the LGM on Astra Malorum. The inclusion of Klaus on Ashes of the Damned I thought was pretty cool. I wish there was a little bit more to him. I wish there was some sort of upgrade side quest like there was on Maurid or Toten, but we didn't have that here, unfortunately. But still, just having him on the map was really cool, and Astra Malorum doesn't really have anything that cool as like a side companion. There is the Bongo Ravager companion side Easter egg, which isn't that good. It doesn't last that long, whereas Klaus you can just keep calling in as much as you want. So I much prefer Klaus, even if he is just reused from a previous game. It was cool to see him back. When it comes to side quests, it's hard to give a definitive answer on this because chances are they probably will find at least one more side quest on Astra Malorum. The map's been out for over 4 days now, but I'm sure someone's going to find something. Obviously, they're still doing the relic hunts, but when it comes to side Easter eggs, I wouldn't be surprised if at least one more thing gets figured out. But in general, Ashes of the Damned, I think, does have better side quests than Astra Malorum. I don't think either map is great when it comes to side quests, though. I really feel like they haven't been doing a great job with that this year. I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but if you go back to games like Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, there was way more unique side Easter egg rewards that you can get, and the depth behind those side Easter eggs were also much better. They basically felt like full-on side quests, and I feel like we haven't really got that back in a while. Black Ops 6 tried for some of the maps, and some of the quests were decent, but a lot of them I just think fell short. And so far in Black Ops 7, I think some of the side quests are even worse than Black Ops 6, unfortunately. But some of them are pretty good. I do enjoy the Bear Talisman one on Ashes, and there's also one where you get to throw a tomahawk at a target and you get a little reward out of that. It's not the worst side quest ever. It's fun. I enjoy it, but it doesn't add that much depth to the game beyond something like the Spider Bait from Zetsubo no Shima or the God Mask from Revelations. We don't have anything on that scale in Black Ops 7, nor do we really have anything on that scale in Black Ops 6 other than maybe the Golden Armor side quest on the tomb, but even that wasn't really a fully unique thing. It was still something we've seen before. Regardless, I do think Ashes overall has been doing a little bit better when it comes to side quests, at least so far. The last thing I prefer about Ashes of the Damned is the Easter egg song. Now, I'm not talking about the soundtrack as a whole because we might discuss that a little bit later when we talk about Astra Malorum, but when it comes to the main Easter egg song, the one by Kevin Sherwood, it is definitely much better than the one on Astra Malorum. The one on Astra Malorum is actually by Avenged Sevenfold, and I'm really glad to see them back. I think it was really cool that they brought them back for a brand new song. We haven't heard one of their songs since Black Ops 4, but unfortunately, it just wasn't a good song in my opinion. I know some people do enjoy it, and that's totally fine if it's your thing. I didn't really like it to the point where I don't even really activate the song when I play anymore because I just don't think it's really worth listening to that often. It's not bad by any means, it's just not my thing. It's also a lot harder to activate it because one of the Mr. Peaks headphone sets that you need to get, you have to do more than half of the main Easter egg to get it. So if you're not doing the Easter egg every game, you're just not going to listen to the song then, which is kind of ridiculous. And now let's get into what I prefer about Astra Malorum, and let's start off with the soundtrack. Like I just said, although I prefer the Easter egg song on Ashes, I think the overall soundtrack is better on Astra Malorum. There's a lot of great pieces of music throughout the Easter egg, even just music that plays when you enter certain areas of the map, the boss fight music, the round change music, and even the song Pareidolia from Shangri-La is actually included as an Easter egg song on this map, an additional one, and even that song is remixed in certain parts of the map. It's so cool the way they did that, and I'm a big fan of how they utilized that fan service to Shangri-La because it wasn't meaningless fan service. It actually had a purpose to it, which I really appreciated. Even though I said I preferred the Ashes of the Damned main quest, I do prefer the boss fight on Astra Malorum. It's a bit more like a regular boss fight, and I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it still is definitely one of my favorites we've had in a while because it is very challenging and you are actually engaging with it for the entire time. It's also really crazy because there's like 4 phases to it, so especially the first time you do it, you just keep thinking it's over and it's just not over, and so you're really just not prepared for it on your first attempt. But once you learn how it works, it definitely gets a bit easier. It's still really hard, which I do like it that way. I like when the boss fights are so hard. I like when you're not guaranteed to complete it every single time you attempt it. I like the fact that sometimes you're just gonna fail, and that's okay. You just got to be set up properly. You got to know how to fight against it. And like I said, I don't think it's perfect because I do think in general modern zombies, a lot of their boss fights are more based around what you have rather than what you're doing, and I do prefer boss fights where you just really need to learn the attacks, you need to learn what to do, and it's not necessarily about what you bring into the boss fight. But I feel like these ones are more so if you bring in the right stuff, it's going to be a lot easier, and if you don't, it'll be a lot harder. But regardless, I still really love it. I think visually it's pretty cool. It's a giant rock monster, and like I said, it is very dangerous. When it comes to the setting, the theme, and the visuals, I do slightly prefer Astra Malorum. I don't think I would prefer it if the Mars section didn't exist, but that section is doing a lot of heavy lifting because it is so cool the fact that we get to go to Mars. Even if it's something that you can only unlock like more than halfway through the Easter egg, it still is really cool because it's a very diverse area that is very different than the other sections of the map. I know I always talk about uniqueness. I'm always talking about how much I really admire when maps are unique. But I also think having unique areas within a map is also really admirable, as long as it has some sort of consistent theme, which obviously the consistent theme here is space. Obviously, we're on Mars as a separate planet versus the main map, which is on this like skull rock in the middle of space. But it's just so cool how it connects, and it would have been even cooler if we went to even more planets beyond just Mars. But regardless, it still is really cool. The skybox is really nice, and in general, I do just enjoy the visuals of this map. I don't think it's perfect. Could there be some areas that are a little bit more interesting within the museums themselves? Sure, the museums aren't like not interesting at all, but they definitely could be a little bit more visually interesting. But I do slightly prefer this over Ashes of the Damned, even if Ashes of the Damned is also a really good looking map, especially certain areas of that map look amazing. Definitely, this game as a whole is much better looking than Black Ops 6, at least in my personal opinion. The settings and themes are way better. And by far, one of my favorite aspects of Astra Malorum that a lot of people don't seem to be enjoying is the Oscar special enemy, which of course is the robot that patrols the map and will only attack you if he spots you. I love this guy, but I'm also someone who loved George back in the day on Call of the Dead, and a lot of people didn't like George as well, but the reason I like Oscar is because of how unique he is. He is so different than the average special enemy to the point where I'm actually so surprised they did this, because one of my main complaints with modern zombies has been the maps feeling a bit too similar to each other, feeling a bit too formulaic, which I do still think is a problem, don't get me wrong, but specifically changing the special enemy to be a very different type of special enemy is really, really cool. Because of the camo grind, I really didn't think they would ever break free from doing the same type of elite special enemy that comes in every couple rounds, has a decent amount of health, but you can kill it pretty easily, and then that's about it. But no, they decided to go with this completely new enemy that you're not meant to kill every time you encounter it. You're actually meant to run away from it. You can even go a full game with just running away from it if you wanted to. Now, obviously in the later rounds, I did hear that it gets really, really rough and he is very hard to avoid past round 50. I haven't done a lot of high rounds on this map yet, so I haven't encountered that myself, but yes, he can get kind of annoying in those later rounds. But at least for the first like 50 rounds, I think he is an incredible special enemy that does pose a threat to you, but isn't annoying in any way, shape, or form. I just think he changes up the gameplay quite a bit because it's someone that you don't have to interact with, but it does force you out of a camping spot. It makes you actually move around the map a bit, and I think that's really, really cool. The same thing George Romero did back with Call of the Dead. Now that we've discussed what I think is better in each map, let's go over which map I prefer. And to be completely honest, it's really hard to decide. I feel like these maps are extremely close in quality. I do think they're both the best maps of the modern zombies era, exclusively because of cursed mode. Having the classic point system, having no loadouts is absolutely huge. So I do think these maps are the best we've seen since Black Ops 4, but I don't think either of them are like some of the best maps ever. I don't think they're in my top 10 favorite maps. They're definitely not S tier maps, but they definitely would be within the range of a low A tier or maybe a high B tier. I do think overall, I'm probably going to look back at Ashes of the Damned as a better map, a better overall experience, but I do think Astra Malorum is going to be a more replayable map, just because it flows more like a traditional zombies experience. Obviously, you don't have a truck that you have to drive around in, and there isn't these large fog areas to go through. And again, I said I like that aspect of that map, but I do think it might cause me to play Astra Malorum a little bit more often, which again, doesn't necessarily mean it's a better map. I think Ashes of the Damned currently probably is a better map, but these opinions change very frequently throughout the year, so who knows, maybe in 6 months I'll have a completely different opinion on this. But right now, in this moment, I think that's my verdict. Ashes of the Damned is a better map, but Astra Malorum is a little bit more replayable. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Peace out.